Yeah, well, like I said, I have had my eye on this race since I did this before in 2018, and it's always loses some substance when there's too many candidates on the field. So it's just there isn't enough that really goes into play to make an open and equal platform for everyone to get their ideas out. So it becomes just a character struggle more often than not, and the ideas get lost. So I kept an open mind about when was going to be the right time to sign up again, and this just seemed like the right time. There was one other guy on the ballot at the time when I signed up, just at the last minute, pushing the deadline, and he dropped out that same day, which is, I do like having more people on the ballot. I am categorically opposed to uncontested elections. Just it doesn't quite seem right that that's even a thing. So yeah, it was just the luck turned out. The other guy dropped out, and that made it into a one-on-one race for the primary, which really gives a more interesting opportunity to really platform the issues to voters and get people more interested in the primary, because Oregon's system especially really throws things off with midterm elections and the primary versus the general. A lot of our nonpartisan races get settled in the primary. Most of them do, actually, but it's the partisan races for Democrats and Republican offices that gets settled later in the general. But it disenfranchises people the way the system is unclear. So I made that really front and center in my voter pamphlet. I put it at the top. Just a disclosure: this pamphlet costs $2,500 to have published, and they only give us a 325 word limit. Just honest. I'm just being honest. I'm doing my best. These are the completely arbitrary barriers in place that stop the average person who wants to get into politics from actually getting a message out to people in a really clear and articulate way. I mean, 325 words, that's like a tweet. And that's the quote unquote equal platform that everyone gets to run for office just across the country. And I mean, I think this seems like a pretty strong contributor to why people are so upset with the system. People don't feel represented, and people who try and get into politics feel really disappointed because it feels like the country should have more steam behind the political election cycle, basically. When I did this before, I signed up really early, and there just weren't any events held up until after the deadline to file, and that just kind of felt like a loss of opportunity there. This time, ironically, they just haven't had a whole lot scheduled. We did our very first, dual presentation yesterday at the Southwest Hills Neighborhood Association meeting. So for this race, myself and Minook Despain both got to, put our platforms forward, and I'm happy that it was, a positive interaction that was focused on the issues that we're each choosing to highlight. And I've learned a lot from the previous campaign I ran, where it really was just, it's very easy to get sucked into, kind of petty bickering over disagreements when we're all supposed to be on the same side, even if we're, different people competing for the same spot within the same party, or whether we're people of different parties trying to find a solution. So what I'm pushing here is the healthcare platform, so far as direct primary care, and using that as a way to really get the country back on track where everyone can actually have access to decent healthcare. This is a system where instead of working through insurance, the provider gets a monthly fee, about $100, sometimes 80, sometimes 120, it depends, but that gets you unlimited access to your doctor. And honestly, like 90% of the time plus, when you go to the doctor, you for the most part know what you need. You need antibiotics, you need something for your cold. It's usually the same thing you get every time. A lot of that can be saved if the doctor knows you, they know your symptoms, they just cut out the wasted steps in the middle, saving both sides money and making the doctors more money in the process. So your average corporate doctor might have between 3,000 and 5,000 patients. Now, if they chose to retire from healthcare, all their patients lose access to a doctor they've possibly built a relationship up with for decades. Direct primary care offers that provider, instead of just facing, burnout like other people have, where you just can't work, they can just dial it back to a private practice direct primary care operation and keep maybe 1,000 patients that they have established relationships with, know their health, and the patients want that to continue enough for it to be worth the monthly fee. That doctor's making $100,000 a month instead of maybe $250,000 a year from before they retired. So they're making more money giving higher quality care to their patients that need it most. And this could really, be a opportunity, across the country. There isn't any community I don't think this could benefit. And Oregon's a leader. They passed a law just last year, I believe, that your payments for direct primary care monthly go towards your annual insurance deductible. So that's progress there. I'm just saying this is something that could be implemented to help the VA and get veterans access to doctors which are closer to home for them, save a lot of the travel expenses. And just moving forward, I believe this is the future standard of healthcare for every reason available, really. Cost of living and affordability, I mean, the government, if we can get a solution for healthcare in place, that's going to make literally everything else in the country run better. It's going to make everything more affordable. This is actually competing with the military so far as like the national budget. I mean, healthcare is the number one cause of bankruptcies. I mean, this is the beast, like everything else that's going on, those are symptoms of the beast. But we take this issue on, we fix healthcare, we fix the major harmful economic driver in the country being bankruptcies. The number one cause is healthcare. So preventative care is the thing that's really lacking. A lot of people, you go to sign up for a doctor's appointment, you're cycled through a different provider each time. So it's just not realistic to get the best health care if you don't have continuation of service, basically. It's unrealistic for each person to accurately describe their life history every single time. And yeah, having that preventative care in place by actually making healthcare accessible, everything else is going to follow. And people don't miss work as much. People are able to work without hurting themselves for longer times because they're getting the proper attention to these issues, not just when they become debilitating, but as soon as the concern arises. Now patients are brushed off until it's a life or death emergency half of the time, and they're heart attacks. Like we should have more attention to detail on this, really. So that's what this offers, is when doctors know their patients specifically, then it really delivers a vehicle for that healthcare to be sent in the right direction on a long-term basis. And this is a system that works for not just retirees, but families. Most of them offer discounted care for children. It's maybe something like $40 a month or even $20, sometimes free if they're under a certain age, like under 5 years old, free. Because these are providers that want to they really believe in the Hippocratic Oath, doing their absolute best job, using their decades of training and experience. And this puts all those premium years to use across the country. I think it could really revolutionize things. It's really helped my healthcare, my situation. I have Medicare and Medicaid. I cannot get a doctor in Lane County. They told me I was going to have to go to, I forget if it was Grants Pass or Klamath Falls for my appointments monthly. And I don't know if that sounds like convenient to you as like a schedule, coming from, I presume, Eugene, but that's not convenient for me, and especially for, people living in rural areas. If you're living in Florence and you're told you've got to go to Grants Pass or Klamath Falls, or, there's plenty of other examples. Nobody should have to drive 2 hours back and forth to a doctor's appointment, 3 hours back and forth, when there's a doctor available 15 minutes away in your city, and the system in place is preventing them from doing their job just because of the overregulation. So this is growing as a movement. Most of them are fully certified MDs. Some of the other providers would be like physician's assistants who have the certification for prescribing in Oregon. Some of them operate these practices. And it's really just learning how to find someone that you can communicate best with to really relay you and your family's health and what you hope for in the future, and just actively work together for reasonable solutions for the best healthcare. And that's just something we've lost as a country. House calls are even an option. So let's say someone's a senior, they're recovering from surgery, they're just trying to live their best life at home. They can schedule on for maybe $50 and get a house call from their doctor, who they've known for 20 years probably, to stop by their house and see how they're doing. And that social interaction, there is tons and tons of research about how these positive social interactions are why, some of the more advanced countries in healthcare around the world have that higher level of healthcare. There's that level of human connection and empathy that's like, okay, I see how you're doing in your home. Okay, let's work on, just giving you the best life possible. So it's affordable, it's reasonable, it's demonstrably successful. I think this is an agenda that we can take from Oregon, use it as a national model, and again, just get people networked, do a little bit better to allow doctors and patients to stay in touch. Like, let's say someone moves to a new state. Why do you have to find a new doctor in your new state if you've known your other doctor for 20 years? Why can't they just write you a prescription to be filled? If we did a little bit more, I understand not letting doctors prescribe to people they've never met across state lines. But if you've had a patient for 10 or 20 years, just because they move, they're still in America. There's a lot of these issues. That's what causes discontinuation of care, unnecessary setbacks, frustration. Stress is the silent killer. And there is more stress that comes from healthcare than almost anything else in the country. I mean, I've seen it, just absolutely. So I understand completely that, going into this, they're not going to let first-term congressmen start making all the decisions about where we're sending battleships and the jet airplanes and stationing troops. But I'd like to be a voice of reason, so far as if I can demonstrate I fixed a major problem that was going on for decades, of course, with the help of, the people who work to correct that system and implement that solution. But just going in and being able to fix one major issue in the first term, I believe most representatives around the country would get on board with this, whether it's Democrats or Republicans or independents, anyone in between, because it really does offer positive aspects of almost every philosophy. You keep your doctor, you're set up with someone who you feel the same as. And just so far as the budget and the sheer amount of money that goes into this, I mean, we spend more money on healthcare than any other country and we get worse results. If we can flip that around and we start making efficient use of this system, which arguably at its best does function the best. There's a reason that people fly here. If you've got billions of dollars and can pay for that top tier healthcare that you get flown to the helicopter, by helicopter to the hospital for, you're getting the best in the world, and everyone acknowledges that. It's that everyone below that is, getting shafted as a result of a clogged system. So yeah, just this does not interrupt that aspect of things so far as people being able to pay for, that level of healthcare. That's just life. If they can't do it in America, they'll do it somewhere else. But there's no reason that here in America, people shouldn't be able to get a doctor just because there's so many hoops to jump through, and we've made it so inconvenient that people who've spent, 30, 40, 50 years of their lives working for the privilege to save people's lives give up that career before they have to and before they're ready to, just because the system is beating them down. I mean, it is emotionally exhausting being the person that people go to when they're sick and ill and suffering and need help. And that's something that we need to recognize so far as doctors need support. It's not just the system. It's not just patients. Doctors are being failed by this system that doesn't let them do their jobs. Oh, absolutely. Regularly updating the website. That's voteforstrek.com. So Strek like in Star Trek, STREK. So vote number 4 Strek.com. So we got some other videos I just found when I did just on street level. I saw that national celebrity kid now, Nick Shirley. I just did a quick street interview with him, just passing by. So, I have been moving and aiming towards this target so far as the election, not just for the past couple of years, the past 8 years. And I think voters are really going to see this is a guy who knows how to visualize, assess, and take on a challenge that most people wouldn't even begin to tackle. And I think that says a lot. We need voters who get the representation that they deserve. And we see that only too rarely. It would be really cool to step in there and, just like I'm saying this, I'm making this a daily project to make every day a competition between the man I am today and the man I was yesterday. And that's just what I'm focusing on. I'm not focusing on the mistakes or the accomplishments of other people so much as what I can learn from that to do better. I'm not trying to bring other people down. And it's a much healthier perspective, it costs too much money to be on the ballot. I am taking this seriously, that this is an investment that millions of people would love to be able to make. And that's an unfair reality that too many people work so hard just to break even. And that's the barrier between them getting involved in trying to speak up for their community and what they're really experiencing. And I think those voices are valid and deserve to be heard better. So far as this is my, what's driving me on this, clearly it's not money. I haven't just, I could have been like other politicians asking for money for the past 8 years, and that's just not been my focus. It's just, I'm not about really telling people what to do. This isn't like a power thing. It's, I recognized better to myself, I'm looking for my own freedom on this. And there is a incredible amount of freedom that comes from being a duly elected representative of the people of the United States of America. You get access to go look for information to solve questions. And it's easy to be the guy who's got all the answers when you're just on the spot for the answers. But really developing those questions and pursuing those answers is a freedom that most people, that's what they go through for the prime career that's right for them. And I just think this is what I can offer, is asking questions that people aren't considering, finding solutions to problems that everyone is dealing with.